Imagine descending into the earth itself, step by step, circle by circle, into a darkness so absolute that even the sun is a distant memory. Imagine a place where every sin ever committed by every human being who ever lived is met with a punishment so perfectly tailored, so poetically cruel, that the sinner is forced to experience for all eternity the exact nature of the wrong they committed in life. This is not a vague concept of fire and brimstone. This is the most detailed, the most structured, and the most psychologically devastating map of the underworld ever created by the human mind. Over 700 years ago, an exiled Italian poet named Dante Alighieri wrote a poem that would become one of the most influential works in the history of Western civilization. It is called the Inferno, the first part of his masterpiece, The Divine Comedy, and it describes a journey through the 9 circles of hell, from the gates where all hope is abandoned, to the frozen lake at the very bottom of the abyss where Lucifer himself is trapped for eternity. Welcome to Eternal Enigma, and today we are going to descend through every single circle of Dante's hell. We will meet the damned, witness their punishments, and uncover the terrifying logic that governs each level of suffering. Because Dante's hell is not random chaos. It is a system, a perfectly organized architecture of damnation where every punishment is a mirror of the sin that earned it. This principle is called contrapasso, and understanding it is the key to understanding why Dante's vision has haunted humanity for 7 centuries. Before we begin, this content draws from Dante's original text, historical context, and theological analysis. We are exploring one of the greatest works of literature ever written, a work that shaped how the entire Western world imagines the afterlife. So prepare yourself, because we are about to pass through the gate upon which the most famous words in all of literature are written. Abandon all hope, you who enter here. Before Dante even reaches the first circle of hell, he must pass through a space that many overlook but that sets the tone for everything that follows. The Vestibule, the antechamber of the damned, is home to souls so pathetic that hell itself refuses to accept them. These are the souls of the futile, those who live their lives without ever committing to anything. Neither good nor evil, neither virtue nor sin. They simply existed, taking no sides, making no choices, standing for nothing. In life they were the people who refused to act when action was demanded, who chose comfort over conviction, who drifted through existence without purpose or passion. And their punishment is devastatingly appropriate. They are condemned to chase for all eternity a blank banner that races ahead of them, always out of reach, representing the cause they never had the courage to follow in life. As they run, they are stung by wasps and hornets, and the blood and tears that flow from their wounds feed worms that crawl at their feet. Even the other damned souls look down upon them. Dante's guide Virgil tells him to look and pass on, that these souls are not even worth discussing. This is Dante's first and perhaps most cutting judgment. The worst fate is not reserved for the greatest sinners. It is reserved for those who never had the courage to be anything at all. It is a message that resonates across the centuries, a warning that indifference and moral cowardice are not neutral positions, but are in themselves a kind of damnation. After passing through the Vestibule, Dante and Virgil reach the river Acheron, where the ferryman Charon, borrowed directly from Greek mythology, transports the damned across to hell proper. The souls crowd the bank, weeping and cursing, and Charon drives them onto his boat with blows from his oar. From this point forward, there is no return. The first circle of hell is the most melancholy and the least physically painful, but in many ways it is the most philosophically troubling. This is Limbo, the dwelling place of the unbaptized and the virtuous pagans, souls who committed no sin but who, through the accident of being born before Christ or outside the reach of Christian baptism, are denied entrance to heaven. Here Dante encounters the great minds of the ancient world: Homer, the father of Western literature; Aristotle, the philosopher who shaped the foundations of Western thought; Socrates, Plato, Hippocrates, Euclid, and countless others who lived lives of extraordinary virtue and wisdom. Their punishment is not fire or ice or physical torment. Their punishment is simply the absence of God. They live in a green and pleasant space, a noble castle surrounded by light, but they know with absolute certainty that they will never ascend to paradise. They exist in a state of eternal longing, desiring something they can never have, and this desire without hope is their damnation. This circle reveals something crucial about Dante's moral architecture. Hell is not simply about punishment for wrongdoing. It is about the relationship between the soul and the divine. These souls did nothing wrong, yet they are excluded from salvation because the system demands it. It is one of the most controversial aspects of Dante's poem, and scholars have debated for centuries whether Dante intended this as a sincere theological statement or as a subtle critique of a doctrine he found troubling. What is certain is that Dante treats these souls with enormous respect and sympathy, making Limbo the only circle of hell where the inhabitants retain their dignity and their intellectual life. It is a beautiful prison, but a prison nonetheless. As Dante descends from Limbo into the second circle, the atmosphere changes dramatically. Here he encounters Minos, a grotesque figure borrowed from Greek mythology, who serves as the judge of the damned. Each soul that arrives before Minos confesses every sin they committed in life, and Minos wraps his enormous tail around his body, the number of coils indicating which circle of hell the sinner is condemned to. Beyond Minos lies the circle of lust, and its punishment is one of the most poetically brilliant in the entire Inferno. The souls of the lustful are caught in a violent, never-ending storm, a hurricane of shrieking wind that hurls them through the darkness without rest, without control, without any hope of peace. In life, they allowed themselves to be swept away by the tempest of their passions, surrendering reason to desire. In death, they are literally swept away, carried on the winds of a storm that never ceases, denied forever the stillness and rest they sacrificed for momentary pleasure. It is here that Dante encounters one of the most heartbreaking episodes in the entire poem. He meets Francesca da Rimini and her lover Paolo, historical figures from Dante's own time. Francesca tells Dante how she and Paolo fell in love while reading the story of Lancelot and Guinevere together. She describes the moment their eyes met over the book, the moment they kissed, and the moment they were discovered and murdered by her husband. Francesca's account is so moving, so tender, and so human that Dante himself faints from overwhelming pity. This is one of the great achievements of the Inferno. Dante does not simply describe punishment, he makes us feel the tragedy of it. Francesca and Paolo are damned, and their punishment is just within the logic of Dante's system, but we cannot help feeling that something deeply unfair has occurred. Love, even forbidden love, seems too beautiful a thing to be punished so harshly, and that tension between justice and compassion is what gives the Inferno its enduring power. Descending further, Dante enters the third circle where the punishment becomes more physically revolting. This is the circle of gluttony, and it is guarded by Cerberus, the three-headed dog of Greek mythology, who tears at the damned with his claws and teeth. The gluttons lie in a foul slush, a putrid mixture of freezing rain, hail, and filthy water that falls upon them endlessly. In life they consumed without restraint, transforming food and drink into their sole purpose. In death they are reduced to garbage, lying in waste that mirrors the excess they worshipped. The contrapasso is brutal in its simplicity. Those who turned sustenance into indulgence are now submerged in the refuse of their own appetites. They are no longer consumers, they are consumed. Among the damned here, Dante meets Ciacco, a fellow Florentine, who despite his wretched condition still retains enough awareness to discuss the political fate of Florence. This is a recurring device in the Inferno, using encounters with the damned to comment on the political corruption of Dante's own time. The fourth circle introduces a punishment that is both physical and philosophical. Here the hoarders and the wasters, those who sinned through their relationship with material wealth, are divided into two groups. The hoarders, who accumulated wealth obsessively and refused to spend, and the wasters who squandered everything with equal recklessness, are condemned to push enormous weights in opposite directions around the circle. When the two groups meet, they crash into each other with tremendous force, then turn around and begin again over and over for eternity. Each group screams at the other. The hoarders cry, "Why do you waste?" And the wasters cry, "Why do you hoard?" Neither side understands that they are mirror images of the same sin, an unhealthy relationship with material things. Dante notes that many of these sinners are clergymen, including popes and cardinals, a pointed commentary on the corruption of the medieval church. Their punishment strips them of all individuality. They are unrecognizable, their features erased by the nature of their sin. In life they define themselves by their wealth. In death their identity is obliterated entirely. The fifth circle surrounds the river Styx, and here the punishments take on a darker, more violent character. The wrathful are submerged in the muddy waters of the Styx, tearing at each other with their teeth and fists in a perpetual battle that never resolves and never ends. They fought in life from anger and resentment, and now they fight for eternity, their rage feeding upon itself in an endless cycle of meaningless violence. But beneath the surface of the Styx lie the sullen, and their fate is perhaps even worse. These are the souls who were angry not outwardly but inwardly. They suppressed their rage, turning it into a bitter, toxic resentment that poisoned their lives and the lives of those around them. They are trapped beneath the muddy water, unable to speak clearly, their words emerging only as bubbles on the surface. Dante can hear them gurgling beneath the slime. They say, "We were sullen in the sweet air that is gladdened by the sun, carrying within us a sluggish smoke. Now we are sullen here in the black mire." This is one of the most psychologically astute punishments in the Inferno. The sullen were people who had every reason to rejoice in life, who lived under the same sun and breathed the same air as everyone else, but who chose bitterness and resentment over gratitude and engagement. Their punishment is to be forever submerged in darkness, unable to communicate, unable to see the sky they refuse to appreciate. It is a punishment that strikes uncomfortably close to home for anyone who has ever allowed resentment to consume their joy. The fifth circle also marks an important transition in the geography of hell. Beyond the Styx lies the city of Dis, the fortified walls of lower hell where the sins become more deliberate, more calculated, and the punishments become correspondingly more severe. Everything above Dis involved sins of weakness, moments where passion or appetite overwhelmed reason. Everything below Dis involves sins of malice, deliberate choices to harm others through violence, fraud, or betrayal. Beyond the walls of Dis, guarded by fallen angels and the furies of Greek mythology, lies the sixth circle, reserved for the heretics. Here the punishment is stark and iconic. The heretics are entombed in flaming coffins, buried alive in fire for eternity. The lids of the tombs are open now, Virgil explains, but will be sealed shut on the day of judgment, when the damned will be locked in forever with no possibility of even being seen. The contrapasso is precise. The heretics denied the immortality of the soul. They believed that when the body died, everything ended. So they are imprisoned in tombs, the very symbol of death and finality, but denied the oblivion they expected. Instead of nothingness, they receive eternal consciousness trapped in a burning coffin. It is here that Dante encounters one of his most memorable characters, Farinata degli Uberti, a Florentine political leader who rises from his burning tomb with such dignity and contempt that he seems to hold all of hell in disdain. Farinata was a Ghibelline, a political enemy of Dante's Guelph faction, and their exchange is charged with the tensions of Florentine politics. Despite being damned, Farinata displays an aristocratic pride that refuses to acknowledge his own suffering. He speaks of Florence, of politics, of the future, as if the flames licking at his body are beneath his notice. Dante also meets Cavalcante de Cavalcanti, the father of his close friend Guido, who desperately asks Dante if his son is still alive. When Dante hesitates in his answer, Cavalcante assumes the worst and collapses back into his tomb in anguish. It is a devastating moment that reminds us these are not abstract symbols of sin, but fully realized human beings, trapped forever in the consequences of their choices. The seventh circle is divided into 3 rings, each punishing a different form of violence, and it represents a significant escalation in both the severity of the sins and the brutality of the punishments. The first ring belongs to those who were violent against others, murderers, tyrants, and warmongers. They are submerged in a river of boiling blood called the Phlegethon, the depth of their immersion corresponding to the severity of their crimes. Centaurs armed with bows patrol the banks, shooting arrows at any soul who tries to rise above their designated level. Alexander the Great, Attila the Hun, and various tyrants boil in this river, some up to their eyebrows, others only to their ankles. The contrapasso is clear. Those who shed the blood of others are now drowned in blood themselves. The second ring punishes those who were violent against themselves, the suicides and those who destroyed their own property and potential. Their punishment is one of the most hauntingly imaginative in the entire poem. The souls of suicides have been transformed into gnarled, twisted trees in a dark forest. They can speak only when their branches are broken, bleeding dark sap and crying out in pain. They destroyed their own bodies in life, so in death they are denied human form entirely, trapped in vegetation that can feel pain but cannot move or act. Harpies, monstrous bird women from Greek mythology, nest in their branches and feed on their leaves, causing constant suffering. Dante breaks a branch and is shocked to hear a voice cry out in agony. The spirit within tells his story, and the horror of the transformation is made visceral and immediate. When Judgment Day comes, these souls will not be reunited with their bodies like the other damned. Instead, their bodies will be hung from the branches of the trees they have become, a final cruel reminder of what they discarded. The third ring punishes those who were violent against God, nature, and art. Blasphemers, sodomites, and usurers lie or walk upon a burning plain of sand while flakes of fire rain down upon them like snow. Among the sodomites, Dante encounters his former teacher Brunetto Latini, a man he clearly loved and respected. Their conversation is tender and sorrowful, and Dante treats Brunetto with enormous compassion despite his damnation. This encounter is one of the most debated passages in the Inferno, with scholars disagreeing about whether Dante truly endorsed the condemnation of sodomy or whether his sympathetic portrayal of Brunetto represents a subtle challenge to the doctrine. We have now descended past violence and entered the realm of fraud, the eighth circle of hell known as Malabulge, which translates as evil ditches. This circle is divided into 10 concentric trenches, each punishing a different type of fraud, and it is by far the largest and most elaborately structured region of the Inferno. Dante devotes more cantos to Malabulge than to any other part of hell, reflecting his belief that fraud, the corruption of the intellect, is a far greater sin than violence, the corruption of the body. The first ditch holds the panderers and seducers, those who used others as objects of manipulation and desire. They march in 2 parallel lines, driven forward by horned demons who whip them mercilessly. They manipulated others through false promises and emotional exploitation, and now they are driven like cattle, stripped of all autonomy and dignity. The second ditch holds the flatterers, who are submerged in a river of human excrement. In life they covered the world in filth through their insincere praise and false words. In death they are immersed in a filth that is literal rather than metaphorical. The third ditch punishes simoniacs, those who sold religious offices, sacraments, or spiritual authority for money. They are planted headfirst in holes in the rock, with only their legs protruding, while flames burn the soles of their feet. The image is a deliberate inversion of the baptismal font, a holy object perverted just as the simoniacs perverted holy things. Among these sinners, Dante places several popes, a boldness that was extraordinary for his time. The fourth ditch holds the fortune tellers, astrologers, and false prophets. Their heads have been twisted around on their bodies so that they face backwards, forced to walk forward while looking behind them. They claim to see the future, so now they can only see the past, their tears running down their backs. The fifth ditch holds the corrupt politicians, grafters who sold public office for personal gain. They are submerged in a lake of boiling pitch, guarded by a squad of demons called the Malabranch, the evil claws, who hook and tear at any soul that surfaces. The sixth ditch punishes hypocrites, who walk in a slow procession wearing gorgeous golden robes that are actually made of lead, crushing them under their weight. Their beautiful exterior hides unbearable heaviness, just as their virtue in life was merely a performance concealing spiritual emptiness. The seventh ditch holds thieves, who are attacked by serpents whose bites cause their bodies to dissolve into ash and then reform, only to be attacked again, a constant cycle of destruction and reconstitution. Some thieves fuse with the serpents that bite them, their identities merging and blurring, a reflection of how theft blurs the boundary between what is yours and what belongs to another. The eighth ditch punishes fraudulent counselors, those who use their intelligence and eloquence to deceive. Each soul is wrapped in an individual flame that conceals them entirely. Here Dante encounters Ulysses, the Greek hero known to the Romans as Odysseus, who speaks from within his flame about his final voyage beyond the known world. The ninth ditch holds the sowers of discord, those who divided communities, families, and religions. A demon with a sword hacks them apart as they walk the circuit of the ditch. Their wounds heal as they complete the circle, only to be sliced open again when they reach the demon. They divided others in life, so they are themselves divided for eternity. And the 10th and final ditch holds the falsifiers, alchemists, counterfeiters, impersonators, and liars of every kind. They suffer from various diseases, plagues, and madness, their bodies and minds corrupted just as they corrupted truth and reality during their lives. Malabulge is Dante's most sustained and detailed condemnation, and its message is unmistakable. The misuse of human intelligence, the corruption of the gift of reason, is the sin that Dante finds most unforgivable. At the very bottom of hell, deeper than violence, deeper than fraud, lies the ninth and final circle. And what Dante finds here overturns everything most people think they know about hell. There is no fire, there is no screaming chaos, there is only ice. The ninth circle is a vast frozen lake called Cocytus, and it is the coldest, stillest, most silent place in all of creation. This is where the traitors are punished, and the ice that imprisons them is formed by the tears of Lucifer himself, whose enormous wings beat ceaselessly at the center of the lake, generating the freezing wind that keeps Cocytus eternally frozen. The ninth circle is divided into 4 regions, each named after a historical or biblical traitor, and each punishing a progressively worse form of betrayal. The first region, Caina, is named after the biblical Cain, and holds those who betrayed their own family. They are frozen in the ice up to their necks, their heads bowed in shame. The second region, Antenora, named after the Trojan traitor Antenor, holds those who betrayed their country or political party. They are frozen in the same position but face upward, exposed to the freezing wind. Here Dante encounters Count Ugolino, and what follows is perhaps the single most horrifying passage in the entire Divine Comedy. Ugolino gnaws eternally at the skull of Archbishop Ruggieri, the man who imprisoned him and his children in a tower and left them to starve. Ugolino tells Dante the story of watching his sons die of hunger one by one, begging him for food, and finally dying himself. The passage is so devastating that Dante interrupts his own narrative to curse the city of Pisa for allowing such cruelty. The third region, Ptolemaia, holds those who betrayed their guests, a sin considered particularly heinous in the ancient world where hospitality was sacred. These souls lie on their backs in the ice, their tears freezing over their eyes, sealing them in a blindness that mirrors the way they violated the trust of those who entered their homes in good faith. The fourth and deepest region, Judeca, named after Judas Iscariot, holds those who betrayed their lords and benefactors. These souls are completely encased in ice, frozen in contorted positions, visible beneath the surface like insects trapped in amber. They are denied all movement, all speech, all sensation except the cold. They are as close to non-existence as it is possible to be while still remaining conscious. And at the absolute center of this frozen waste stands Lucifer himself. Nothing in literature quite prepares you for Dante's depiction of Lucifer. Forget the charismatic rebel of Milton's Paradise Lost. Forget the cunning tempter of popular imagination. Dante's Lucifer is a grotesque, pathetic, and utterly terrifying figure, and the horror of his condition is that he is the exact opposite of everything he once was. Lucifer was the most beautiful angel in creation, the brightest light in heaven, the being closest to God. Now he is a monstrous giant, embedded in ice from the waist down at the exact center of the earth, which is also the point farthest from God in all of creation. He has 3 faces, a grotesque parody of the Holy Trinity. One face is red, one is yellow, and one is black, representing the corruption of power, wisdom, and love. Beneath each face is a pair of enormous bat-like wings, and it is the beating of these wings that generates the freezing wind that keeps all of Cocytus frozen. Lucifer does not speak. He does not scheme or tempt or command. He simply weeps, his tears mixing with the bloody foam that drips from his 3 mouths, each of which eternally chews on a sinner. In the central mouth, the worst position, is Judas Iscariot, his head inside Lucifer's jaws, his back flayed by Lucifer's claws. In the left and right mouths are Brutus and Cassius, the assassins of Julius Caesar, whom Dante considered the greatest political betrayers in history. The contrapasso of Lucifer himself is the most profound in the entire poem. He was the highest being in creation, and now he is the lowest. He was the most beautiful, and now he is the most hideous. He was closest to God, and now he is farthest from him. He sought to rise above his station through pride and rebellion, and his punishment is to be eternally fixed, immobile, powerless, at the dead center of all the weight and darkness in the universe. Lucifer is not the ruler of hell. He is its most wretched prisoner. He does not command the demons or orchestrate the punishments. He is simply there, frozen, weeping, chewing, forever. This is Dante's ultimate statement about the nature of evil. Evil is not powerful. Evil is not glamorous. Evil is cold, silent, and utterly impotent. It is the absence of everything that makes existence meaningful: love, beauty, warmth, connection, freedom. And at the center of that absence sits the being who chose it, trapped forever in the consequences of his own rebellion. Now that we have descended through all 9 circles, it is worth stepping back to appreciate the terrifying elegance of Dante's design. The Inferno is not a random collection of horrors. It is a precisely engineered system where every punishment reflects the sin that earned it with mathematical precision. This is the principle of contrapasso, and it operates at every level of the poem. The lustful are blown by winds because they were blown by passions. The gluttons lie in filth because they reduced life to consumption. The wrathful tear at each other because they destroyed peace. The heretics burn in tombs because they denied eternal life. The suicides are trapped in trees because they rejected their human bodies. The flatterers swim in excrement because they produced verbal filth. And the traitors are frozen because they were cold in their betrayal of human warmth and trust. The structure also moves from sins of weakness at the top to sins of malice at the bottom, reflecting Dante's Aristotelian belief that the deliberate misuse of reason is worse than the failure to control appetite. A glutton is weak. A flatterer is calculating. The glutton falls into sin. The flatterer chooses it. And this is why fraud is punished more severely than violence, and treachery more severely than fraud. Dante created something that no one before him had attempted, and no one after him has surpassed. He built a complete moral universe, a system of justice so internally consistent and so psychologically penetrating that 700 years later, it still has the power to make us examine our own lives and ask ourselves which circle we might deserve. That is the true genius of the Inferno. It is not just a poem about the afterlife. It is a mirror held up to the living. So we have descended through all 9 circles of hell and returned. We have seen the futile chasing their blank banners. We have felt the hurricane of the lustful. We have watched the wrathful tear each other apart in the Styx. We have passed through the burning tombs of the heretics, the boiling blood of the violent, and the 10 evil ditches of the fraudulent. We have stood before the frozen lake of the traitors and looked into the weeping faces of Lucifer himself. Dante did not write the Inferno simply to terrify. He wrote it to illuminate. Every circle, every punishment, every encounter with the damned is designed to make the reader think more carefully about their own choices, their own sins, and the architecture of justice that governs the moral universe. The Inferno endures because it speaks to something universal in the human experience, the knowledge that actions have consequences, that choices matter, and that the way we live our lives shapes the world we inhabit, whether that world is physical or spiritual. 700 years after Dante wrote these words, his vision of hell remains the most detailed, the most psychologically complex, and the most hauntingly beautiful map of the underworld ever created. And the questions it asks are still waiting to be answered. If this descent into the deepest darkness of human imagination made you think differently about sin, justice, and the afterlife, then subscribe to Eternal Enigma and join us as we continue to explore the hidden architecture of the worlds beyond our own, because the journey does not end here. Dante descended through hell, but he also climbed the mountain of purgatory and ascended to the heights of paradise. And those stories are just as extraordinary as the one we have told today. The only question is whether you are ready to continue the journey.